Hello, everybody. And for this full series, I hope you enjoy it. We're on the road to 1,000 subscribers, so you better subscribe. Or else your cat's going to teleport to my house because I want all the cats. Anyway, subscribe to Otaku onto this great What If Deku Was an Archangel, part 1 through 3. Bye-bye. Okay, so onto the video. So we start this off where Deku, one day he suddenly wakes up somewhere he didn't know where he was, and he turns around to see Inka walking out of a door, and he's like, "What's Mom doing?" As a doctor comes up behind him, and with a rag in chloroform, he chokes him, and he falls unconscious. Deku then, the next month later, he wakes up with two sets of, two wings on each side of his body. One on left, one on right. And Izuku is like, "Whoa, wings!" As a doctor comes in like, "Oh, you're here, Izuku. Okay. So happy you're finally awake. Well, your mother wanted to make sure you got a quirk because she's in financial debt right now. And we paid her to unlock your quirk. But the reason we paid her, because your quirk is actually very strong. And there is a second reason. You'll be training under the government for this. You'll have two acquaintances. They're both quite strong, troubled. But we hope to guide you to be a wonderful hero and help serve your country. How does that sound, Izuku?" And Izuku's like, "Of course I will." As his mom behind the glass smiles like, "Thank you so much, Izuku." As he never saw his mom after that. The next couple years were a blur. He met his two bestest friends. One was named one chick, guys. Oh yeah, Toya Todoroki, and his other friend, whatever Hawks' name is. I don't know how I didn't remember Dobby's. Just for clarifying, we can go Google it. Hawks' real name. Kaigo Takami. That's what we'll say. Kaigo Takami. Anyway, on to the video. Izuku had lots of fun with his friends. Toya's quirk was blue flames, cremation as he called it. And Hawks had wings that were quite unique. They did a lot of things. And Izuku obviously had Archangel wings, but he also had Archangel ability, so his quirk was obviously called Archangel. He could use powers of light, and when he was getting desperate in a fight, he would use something called the last wish, aka a very strong sword. And this sword could summon lots of light and holy abilities, stuff like that. So, Izuku was also homeschooled during this time. One time, when he was 15, everyone was put in the final test, as the government called it, to prove if they really were cut out to be a hero. They checked into your past. They also put in this test, and someone who could see the future to see what would happen if they were a villain and their hero path. But when they do all the tests and the families come in, this is where Toya had something go on. Toya, when his future was read for being a hero, the person was shocked, like, it's all blank. I don't see it. As the man there is like, what do you mean it's blank? As the person looks to him like, he never becomes a hero no matter what. As the man is confused, like, but how? As Toya's like, what? Why? As Toya starts tearing up. And that's when the other person looks into his eyes and sees the villain side's future. And sees him supposedly killing Endeavor. AKA what happens in like the current manga story, but we don't talk about that. Anyway, Izuku, they never saw a villain one. At least that's what the person said. That they saw a gruesome villain one. They saw a very gruesome one. In Izuku's villain future, he got all for one, which we're not making Izuku a villain because an Archangel is a high-ranking angel. This is not what if Izuku was a fallen angel, so I'm just saying. Anyway, when that was all said and done, Toya was contemplating something as Izuku comes over to him like, so Toya, what happened? As Toya looks to him like, I'm sorry, Izuku. I don't know what I did wrong. As the world isn't kind to me, As Izuku's like, yeah, I see that. As Toya's like, Izuku, give this to Kaigo. As he gives him a little card. And it says, see you in 10 years. As Izuku's like, what do you mean by that? As, in front of his face, Dabi sets in a massive fire blast in front of him. And this hurts Izuku immensely. He used his wings to shield him, but his face was really burnt. And Izuku immediately fell to the ground trying to cover up his face. As he yelled at Kaigo, like, go get him, Kaigo! As Kaigo coming into the room was like, what happened? As he sees Dabi about to finish Izuku off. He got scared, like, stop it, Toya! As he sent all of his feathers out. And a couple of them actually penetrate Toya's skin. Some didn't. And Kaigo was also blasted with fire, which led him unconscious. But Izuku was really hurt by the fire. And emotionally. So, when Izuku eventually got up with lots of skin torn off by the fire, he looks to Kaigo like, we need to go after him. As he sees Toya running off in the distance, and he uses an ability called Heaven's Holy Box, as it's literally how it sounds. He can't get out of it's an indestructible box, but its durability, not being indestructible, is dependent on Izuku's well-being right now. So, like, if he's at 100% stamina on everything, it'll be indestructible. If he's extremely hurt, it's like glass. And if he's nearly dead, you can literally just, like, hit it and it, like, falls apart. Anyway, Dabi, who was thinking about that, immediately blasts through the box. and he sends another fireball their way. And Izuku gets out a last wish, and he cuts it in half. And one of the government workers comes blazing through the door like, "What happened here?" As Izuku falls to the ground unconscious, and his sword also disappearing. And Kaigo, also nearly unconscious, is like, "Toya escaped," as he also then falls unconscious from just pain. As the worker who came in is like, "Oh, boss is gonna be so mad at this," as he quickly brings them both to the medical center, and they do get treatment. But when Izuku wakes up, he's met with one of the boss of the government. Well, their boss, basically. And he looks to them like, "So explain to me how one of your three got out." As Izuku's like, "Well, me and Toya were talking. He said randomly, like, it was never meant to be, Izuku." I looked to him like, "What do you mean by that?" And I got blasted with a torrent of fire and flames. And yeah, that messed me up. As half of Izuku's entire face right now is bandaged. And Kaigo here, he did come in, but I couldn't do anything because of my injuries. And when he came in, he tried to stop Toya, but as you know, his weakness is flames, so that didn't go out the best. So he ended up escaping. And the man is just like, "Is that so? Well, we can do with that. After all, we do have..." "No, we don't. I lied." As he walks out of the door. And Izuku, thinking about what's gonna happen next, realizes, "Oh right, in 2 or 3 years, it'll be time to finally go and be a hero." As one of the workers comes in like, "Kaigo, Takumi, and Izuku Midoriya, you two are a hero from this day on. You already have a provisional hero license. Now get out there. You have each your own agencies." As Izuku's like, "I understand, sir," as he quickly runs out and starts defeating villains under his new registered name, Arc. Just thinking of it on the spot. And Izuku, having a hero costume similar to a male in Seven Deadly Sins. While doing this, he finds the sledge villain, and he sees Bakugo and his friends being attacked by it, and Izuku throws the villain up in the air and cuts it in half, and then uses an ability he calls permanent erasure, as a circle forms around the sludge villain as it's getting up from the cut, and a ray of light strikes the villain down, and the villain is just eradicated, and it's very burned. So when the beam of light was done being shot at the villain that was already nearly clinging on to life, he was taken to the hospital, obviously, and then turned in. So Izuku already being getting a start off, he was kind of rivals with Hawks, but not really. Over the next 5 years or so, Actually, no, 2.5 years, Izuku and Hawks climbed leaderboards. By the time UA had started, Izuku was in 22nd, Hawks was in 21st, because obviously his wings hope to save people. And Hawks and Ark decide to meet up one day. And remember, Ark is our main character, Izuku. So, Kaigo, meeting with Izuku, comes over to him like, "It's been a while, Izuku. I haven't seen you in so long." So, you're in 22nd, right? Well, I hear that there's a very big villain fight about to happen in a couple minutes. And it's this villain called All For One, I believe. He's going to be fighting All Might. That's at least what my assistant told me. As Izuku's like, I understand. As Izuku uses his wings to fly as fast as he can to where Kaigo had told him where the spot would be. When he drops down, he sees a random building there. It looked very normal, not very suspicious. But when Izuku peeked into the lab, he saw a man in a laboratory and lots of little test tubes. And Izuku's like, very interesting, as he quickly flew away and waited. As he saw a Mount Lady appear randomly and kick the door. Well, no, basically the building. And then an explosion happened, and he was blown back. Like, what the heck? As he sees All For One there, and not knowing how this fight will go, he waits for All Might to arrive. And when All Might arrives, that's when Izuku drops down. He's like, this is my chance. As he shouts, "Heaven's erasure," as the circle appears over All For One, and he's like, you really think a beam of light will do anything to me? As he starts screaming. As the more evil you are, the more damage the ability does. So this hurt All For One a ton. And Izuku, then extracting all the energy from the attack, is like, whoa, what is this strength? You must have been very evil, I see. As, oh, I see that you have multiple quirks. As he yells, snatch, as a random beam of light comes out of All For One's chest. And it's green, and it's reacting very, very much. And when Izuku absorbs it into his body, like, that's the regeneration I've been dreaming of. As All For One's like, I only have 2 regens now. As he quickly blitzes over to Arc, and when they start to fight, All Might joins in. And it's not going great for All For One, being already very damaged from the Heaven's Erasure. And yeah, so Izuku and All Might let the battle drag on for a while, until eventually it ends up Izuku is inside of a building, very beaten and battered, and All Might is barely clinging on to the fight, and All For One, using his regen, was very still in good condition. So Izuku now, getting up, is like, this will be my final attack, as he slams his last wish sword into the ground and saying, wrath, as a dragon of light comes out of the clouds, and it opens its mouth and charges down at All For One. And All For One's like, that's not good, as he gets all of his quirks in one hand and tries to fight the dragon. But the dragon chomps him, and when it does, All For One just falls unconscious immediately, and lots of blood comes out of his body, and lots of things were drained from him. No quirks, but just lots of stamina and power, and it all coming back to Izuku. He gets up and is like, I did it, I beat him, as he quickly helps All Might up, like, are you okay, sir? As he's like, yeah, thanks, kid. As Kaiko, who was watching this, is like, he's definitely overthrown me, yeah. Probably in number 3 or 2. And yeah. So, that's where I'll be leaving off for part 1, guys. I will definitely do a part 2, I assure you. So yeah, this is Otaku signing off. Thanks for 900 subs. Bye. Okay, so we continue this right after the All For One incident. So he's immediately ran back to the military center, where the boss there at the little training center says, well, Izuku, it's been a while. You've grown to the 8th hero spot. You've been an amazing success, along with Hawks. And I would like to say, you have now hit number 3 hero. You've passed Mirako because of, well, obviously saving All Might from All For One with your ability. So, we would like to honor you with a Medal of Honor. And Izuku's like, okay, I don't really care. And the guy's like, what do you mean you don't care? Only hundreds of people have ever gotten this badge. And Izuku's like, well, what is it? And the military man just like, okay, you'll hear about it later. As Izuku's like, whatever. As for the next couple of days, he'd been doing normal hero work. And when he suddenly was watching the news in his agency, and on the TV he saw breaking news: number 1 pro hero All Might announces retirement. As Izuku's shocked, like, what? I thought he still had, oh right, his deflated form, I saw that. As he thought to himself, it depends how long he had that though. If he had that for over 5 years, and that's when the disturbance happened. Oh, 5 years ago, flashback. Izuku was doing some training outside, and that's when he heard a sudden explosion. And he wanted to go rush over there, but he was kept to train. But when he eventually got out of his classes, he quickly ran to the scene, only to see a man being put on a stretcher and quickly gone into this underground lab. As Izuku's like, interesting. As the doctor actually saw him and says, don't you worry, kid, we'll meet again. As he quickly rushes All For One into the lab. Present time. Izuku is like, so that's what it was. Well, I'll be number 2 now, and I'll have to defeat Endeavor. Yes. As Izuku, well, around half a year later, he heard an explosion where he was patrolling, and he immediately blitzed over there and saw Mirio and Eri, obviously, fighting Overhaul, with Sir Nighteye trying to save Mirio, but he was just crawling because he'd been so injured. And Izuku is like, I have to help, as he quickly jumps over to them and yells, Heaven's Ascension, as a massive domain of random, like, drawings and letters appear around Overhaul, as Overhaul's like, what's this? As he uses a massive strike to try and break the seal, as it doesn't even do anything to the seal, as Overhaul begins shrinking. As he's like, no, what's happening? As his voice also starts shrinking. And eventually, when he's the size of an ant, Izuku picks him up and is like, so this is the power of a gang leader. As he drops Overhaul off at the police station and just says, Kai Chisaki, detain him. He's tiny. He'll grow back in about an hour. As Izuku quickly flies back to where Mirio and Sir Nighteye were. And they're like, thank you so much for helping me. As Eri steps off of Mirio's back and is like, thank you so much, mister. As she tries to crack a smile, but she can't. And Sir Nighteye is like, thank you, Ark. That was helpful. As Izuku is like, I can show you my new move I just learned a couple days ago, actually. As he peels something off of his skin and it looks like a bar of soap, except, it's not solid. As he throws it on Sir Nighteye, and it wraps his entire arm in it. And Sir Nidae's like, so what does this do? As it quickly dissipates and his entire body is healed. And Sir Nighteye is like, you have an extraordinary quirk. What's your name? Your real name? Izuku looks to him like, I don't know, honestly. It's been so long since anyone's called me by it. Last time I heard that name was from my mother. As Sir Nighteye is like, you're like hawks. And Izuku's like, yeah. As he quickly just flies away because it was an awkward conversation. And around a month later, he was patrolling with Endeavor and Hawks, and they were discussing normal stuff when Endeavor is suddenly hit from behind by the high-end Nomu. And Izuku quickly gets into action like, Hawks, art style, as Izuku throws Hawks in the air as he covers the high-end Nomu in what's it called? Explosive feathers. And that's when Izuku begins forming the seal spell. And the Nomu, knowing this, quickly takes the explosions and hits Izuku in the face and starts just destroying him. When Izuku eventually gets off of the attack, he's battered. Like, that failed, as his left arm is also broken from it. As the Nomu's like, you're a fragile hero. Some number 2. As Izuku's like, why did you call me? As he puts his hand in the ground and says, rock form, Archangel's burst. As his hand forms into a rock sword. And he's like, charge! As the gnome is like, what do you think a rock's going to do against me? as it's about to pierce the Nomu's chest, he says, "Divine purification, rock form," as a brown dragon comes out of the rock, and out of Izuku's right arm, a light one, and they both chomp on the Nomu as the Nomu screams in agony. And that does a lot of damage. Also, Izuku, using his snatch ability, gets a quite good quirk. Super strength. And Izuku, is like, yes, this'll help a lot more. As he quickly jumps over to, the Nomu, and they begin a one-on-one combat. And just fighting. But the Nomu is getting destroyed, but its regeneration is so good. Yeah. Okay, I was trying to debate if this was the hacker one or not. I almost forgot. Anyway, Izuku starts getting on the upper side, the upper hand, against the Nomu. And that's when Endeavor uses his ability Flash Fire Fist and uses it on the Nomu as Izuku steps back and he sees the massive explosion of fire and he's like, there's no way the Nomu survived that, as he's quickly punched in the face by the Nomu as it begins using its speed to combo Izuku. But eventually, Izuku kicks him in the face, sending him backwards, and says, "What are you doing, Hawks?" As Hawks is like, "I have no wings, remember?" As Izuku's like, "Right, the explosives." As Izuku makes something out of his left hand, and it's a massive sword. And then Nomu's like, another purification. As the Nomu gets ready to expand to get away from the dragons. As Izuku sends Endeavor toward him as they begin fighting. As Izuku makes sure that they can't escape from the area and makes a very large scale seal from the area. But he just hopes that Endeavor's not caught in it. As he puts his hand on the ground and begins sealing the entire area up. As the Nomu notices this, the wall starts forming. And right as it's about to finish completion, the Nomu almost jumps out, but Endeavor throws it back in. But still getting stuck in there with it. And when the dome finishes, Izuku falls to the ground. He's like, "Where are you, Endeavor?" As he quickly sees Endeavor and the Nomu fighting. And Izuku's like, there's no way I'm letting the number one die like this. No, as I can't even undo the spell. It took so much energy. As Hawks is like, so you can't undo it? As Izuku's like, no, I can't. That would take too much energy. I'm already about to pass out. As Hawks is like, so he might die here? As Izuku's like, that is correct. As Izuku thinks of it like, oh yeah, I can still do spells. As Izuku thinks of his ultimate attack, like, I've never used this one before. As he puts his hand into the ground and gets all of the elements on his fingers and making a little rock barrier for his finger, and he gets lava on it. And Izuku's like, elemental, destruction, purification, wrath, as a massive rainbow dragon comes out of the ground in the dome and begins circling the Nomu. And the Nomu's like, I've never seen this element. as it charges the dragon. And the dragon headbutts it into the air, and it hits the dome, nearly cracking it from just the force. And when the Nomu comes down, it gets chomped. And the Nomu, its entire half body just gets decimated. And his legs and everything else was swallowed. Yeah, the dragon kind of ate it. But it's translucent, so. No, transparent. So Endeavor watching the dragon like, okay, is it dead? As the Nomu begins trying to get up. And that's when a liquid starts pouring into where the Nomu is. And it melts. It's lots of acid as the Nomu starts melting. And yeah, it melts in the dragon. And that's when the dragon eventually melts. And Endeavor ends up digging a hole through the ground to get through the barrier. But then he realizes the barrier goes nearly through the entire earth, so he couldn't do that. And Izuku eventually got enough stamina to unseal it. And yeah, that's how that story goes. Anyway, the next couple days were normal after that. He kept a tab on Class 1A. Their kid, Bakugo Katsuki, was their strongest by far. And they also had Shinzo in the class to replace Izuku. And yeah. So, a couple of months after that, Izuku had gotten a one more technique where he could make this elemental sword out of any element, even charging it with all of them, like the dragon. But it was basically the same strength as the dragon, except he can control it. Also, he was quickly called to a scene where Izuku somehow didn't know that there was kind of a hero versus villain war going on. And he was told that somebody named Tomura Shigaraki would show up here, and that he had the quirk all for one. As Izuku's like, I didn't kill him? Impossible. I used all of my energy for that. As when Tomura eventually arrives and starts attacking, we'll say Mirio, for one for all. Izuku and Mirio begin tag teaming on the villain, but Izuku, only being, a normal hero with one quirk, was tossed around like trash to Shigaraki. But when Endeavor arrived, Izuku got tons of fire from Endeavor's back and charged his sword with it and ran at Shigaraki. As Izuku just hoped he could get one slash off. So when Mirio and Endeavor were gaining an upper hand on Tomura, Izuku comes behind him and uses his fire sword and cuts half of Tomura's body in half. And as the body is sliding away, he sees things begin pulling themselves back together as Izuku keeps slashing at them. And he eventually slashes a third. And he begins slicing and dicing. And eventually, he makes him into 36ths. And he then uses divine purification. And a dragon comes and just swallows all of it. As Izuku's like, I did it. I killed him. As the dragon suddenly explodes. And Shigaraki, with a black aura in his face, and All For One talking now is like, well, hero, you're the one that defeated me. You brought me out again. Why is that? You may have killed Tomura's mind, but you haven't defeated the body. Now here is your final dance. As he gets in position to fight. As Izuku's like, this is it. As Mirio, Endeavor, and Izuku all rush at All For One. And that's where we'll be leaving off, ladies and gentlemen. Always gotta get the cliffhangers occasionally. Yeah. Anyway, that's where I'll be leaving off. Bye-bye, everybody. Subscribe, you bet. Okay, mates. So, we continue this off right after Deku and Hawks started fighting All For One. Well, aka Shigaraki. And when the battle starts, Izuku immediately goes on the offensive, getting his sword out, and kept trying to slash at All For One. But All For One used, we'll say the forced Quirk activation, little tentacles. And Izuku nearly gets stabbed by it, but he just narrowly dodges. But Hawks, you see, he wasn't so lucky. All For One was actually aiming for Hawks, and when it went into Hawks, he was drilled into the ground. And All For One cut off his arm and immediately regenerated it. So the arm was still pouring power into the wound. And Hawks was hurt. He's basically out for the count. And All For One immediately knees Deku in the face, launching him into the ground. And when Deku looks back up, All For One uses a lot of quirks in one arm and smashes Izuku into the face. And Izuku, after stopped rolling, looks up to see All For One right above him and just says, "You rookie, this is not the place for you. You are too strong for your own good. Let me take that power and I'll use it perfectly." As Izuku just says to himself, "Perfect," as he slams his hands on the ground as he starts levitating. And All For One's like, what the? As the circle of divine blessing goes around All For One. As All For One starts looking around, is like, what's happening? As a heavenly wall goes around him, and one massive dragon comes down, lunging at him. As All For One starts powering up both of his arms, and he jumps at the dragon to try and hit it, but it quickly reappears behind him and crunches on him. And All For One wails in pain, but he quickly gets back up and just says, "Is that all?" As Izuku is shocked, like, that is the move that took Shigaraki out. This guy's much more trouble. As he starts trying to hit All For One with all types of abilities. Eventually, he backs up so Endeavor can start trying to get hits in. As Izuku was told by Endeavor before Endeavor entered the fight, if there were to be a situation where the villain and him were fighting, and Izuku got a seal off, don't undo it. As Izuku jumps back like, "I'm sorry, Enji. You told me to do this." As he slams his fist into the ground, and a massive heavenly aura goes around Izuku in the arena, as the seal starts forming very quickly. As All For One's like, "I can't do this," as he starts just destroying Endeavor. But Endeavor makes sure he doesn't leave. And when Endeavor gets him in a rear neck chokehold, he puts his flames to maximum and starts burning the body of All For One. As All For One keeps trying to get him off, the seal is complete. As Endeavor is like, I can rest easy, knowing I have defeated the strongest villain. As All For One's like, how dare you assume? As All For One's body erupts in black energy, exploding and combusting. And Endeavor is plunged into the ground, being bloodied and battered, and making a crater. As All For One gets literally all of his quirks in one arm, and says, there's no way your seal can protect you against this. As he reels his fist back and lunges at the seal, as Izuku's like, full protection, double power, as the seal gets double layered, and the punch cracks the seal, as Izuku's like, how? It's supposed to be unbreakable, as All For One hits it again, and that part shatters like glass. Izuku just flabbergasted, like, there's no way, as he pours all of his energy into his right arm and slams it into the ground and says, life seal, as now he literally can't move while the seal is actually unbreakable. And Izuku, being happy, like, there's no way you can escape now, villain. As that's when Dabi arrives. He's like, hello, boss. As Izuku looks to him like, no. As Toya is like, hello, Izuku. It's been a while. As Izuku's like, how does he know my name? As Dabi's like, I'm sorry, but this is the end of your journey. As he puts his hand out to Izuku, as Izuku, who's just shocked, like, I can't get my hand out of the ground in time. I'll have to retract a little energy. As he quickly makes a shield out of the little energy he still has left, and he says, do your worst, villain. Fire mode. As it forms a red shield. As Dabi quickly jumps over it and sends a massive fireball at him. And Izuku's like, no. As he can't get his arm to stretch as far as the fireball is. So he throws it over, but it actually melts when Dabi hits it. As Izuku accepts his fate, Hawks kicks him in the side, throwing him into a tree, and taking the entire blunt of the fireball, without any wings to spare. So, Izuku, as he shouts for Hawks, like, Kaigo, no! As he hits the tree and tries to scurry to Hawks' help, as Hawks looks back to him like, you got this, Izuku. I know you do. As Hawks is incinerated by Toya's blast. And when it dissipates, All For One and Dabi are right next to each other. As All For One's like, you're late. I almost lost that. As Dabi's like, well, I got rid of the number 3, didn't I? As Izuku, bloodied and battered, and knowing Endeavor's completely unconscious, accepts his defeat, like, I can't even defeat that villain, yet alone defeat you one-on-one, All For One. As All For One is like, You're going to meet a bloodied end, just like many before you. You remind me of Nana. As Izuku was like, but here's the difference. You never accounted for a trap. As All for One's like, what do you mean trap? As a massive oval shape goes around them. And All for One's like, ha, you think this'll defeat me? The first time it didn't do anything. As Izuku's like, this is for my fallen comrades. As he sees, instead of only one dragon coming down, he sees 30 of them all stacked on each other. And they split into two for Dabi and All for One as they're plunging towards the ground at him. All for One is like, my regen will finish the job for this. This won't do anything to help your situation. As Izuku also puts a seal around them. And Izuku thinking, this should be it. Yeah. As out of exhaustion, he starts losing ground. And when all the dragons clamp down on both Dabi and All for One, Dabi obviously dies. I mean, 15 dragons chomping at him, all stacked on each other, so Dabi's dead. 1 out of the 3 trio have died. And All for One, a literal blood river. And when all the blasts dissipate and Izuku stares at the seal with smoke filled with it, staring at All for One's limp body. As Izuku's like, I have to see. There's no way he survived that. As he limps towards the body with his broken arm and leg. And as he checks, he sees All for One barely look at him as he twists his neck like, I didn't account for that snatch ability. You took our quirks. Somehow, one of your dragons took All for One. You cheater. As All for One's body finally collapses and dies. Well, not All for One's body, Shigaraki's body, but All for One, his spirit dies. But, All for One's actually at the prison, so. And Izuku, being happy, like, so, I win. As a orb of light comes back to him, as he's like, yes, the snatch, as it all pours into his body, as Izuku immediately collapses, because it hurt a lot to get all those quirks. His body couldn't adjust to it in time. As Izuku, who had collapsed and no stamina and broken limbs, fell. He fell to the ground, dead, from his own abilities and power. And yeah. Oh, by the way, in Endeavor, he's holding on to life. So when Endeavor was rushed to the hospital, same with Izuku and Hawks, the doctors, while all 3 were in ambulances, pronounced Izuku, Midoriya, and Kaigo Tamaki dead. But Endeavor, he was saved, but he was paralyzed from the neck down. And he couldn't, his back was really messed up from that explosion of electricity and explosion. So yeah, if this is short, guys, deal with it. And yeah, that's where I'll be leaving off, everybody. That's the end of this series. Bye-bye, everybody. Get to 1,000 subs, you better.